have a voice. My voice is powerful. My voice can change the world. I have a voice. My voice is powerful. My voice can change the world.
You were born with the heart of 1,000 mothers, open and fearless and sweet. You were born with the fire of queens and conquerors, warriors' blood you bleed. You were born with the wisdom of sages and shamans, no wound can you not heal. You were born the teller of your own tale, before none should you kneel. Remember, woman, remember, you are more than you can see. Remember, woman, remember, you are loved endlessly. Remember, woman, your power and grace, the depth of your deep sea heart. Never forget, you are woman divine, as you have been from the start.
You were born with an immeasurable soul, reaching out past infinity.
You were born to desire with passion and abandon, to name your own destiny.
You were born with a voice to make your own choice, to transcend and lead the way. Magic made light. You are woman divine, as you have been from the start.
Remember your voice without hesitation. Remember your path is all your creation.
Remember to honor the warrior inside,
Who wears beauty and courage at the same time. Remember,
you were born with the power,
courage, the fire. Remember,
You were born with the heart,
passion, the grace.
remember, you were born with the wisdom. Remember, remember.
I have a voice. My voice is powerful. My voice can change the world. I have a voice. My voice is powerful. My voice can change the world. I will open my eyes.
I will open my eyes.
I will not look away.
I will not look away.
I will use this gift I've been given every day.
I have a voice. My voice is powerful. My voice can change the world. I have a voice. My voice is powerful. My voice can change the world. Change the world.
I will give of myself.
I will give up myself.
I will reach out my hand.
I will reach out my hand.
I will use this heart I've been given to take a stand.
I have a voice. My voice is powerful. My voice can change the world. I have a voice. My voice is powerful. My voice can change the world. Change the world.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Arlene Solomon Visions event. My name is Linda Waltzman. I'm the chair of Women's Philanthropy Cabinet of Jewish Long Beach. Each year, our cabinet members coordinate a special event which was endowed by Arlene Solomon of blessed memory. For those of you who have attended over the past 25 years, I am thrilled to have you back again. And for those of you who are joining us for the very first time, we welcome you with open arms and warm hearts as we celebrate the collective impact of Jewish women. Ma nishtana halayla hazeh mikol halelot. Why is this night different from all other Visions nights? Well, it's the first time we can't reach out and hug each other. In all other years, we have filled the Amy and Rich Lapellis Auditorium to its 300-person capacity, overflowing with generous and enthusiastic women of all ages. Attendees have ranged from our teenage daughters to Hillel students and the great-grandmothers and founding mothers of our community. We are joined together by the common desire to do good, to make the world a better place, by giving what we can to those who are in need. Although tonight is different in some ways, we are still counting on you to invest in our shared community. You can do that by making your annual pledge to Jewish Long Beach. That pledge is a promise to help fund the numerous programs and services that make our community so robust and secure. Together, we will light the way forward by fostering a vibrant Jewish life locally, in Israel, and around the world. Thank you again for your generosity and for joining us here tonight.
Every generation of Jews has been both blessed and burdened with the commission of doing what is necessary in their times for the survival of our people.
We are the children of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, a people that has known tragedy, a people that has brought about miracles, a people that knows how to fight and how to make peace.
We do not have the luxury of despair. We have the opportunity to move forward, to get up again and again and again. That is what Jews do, and that is what we will do together.
While others talk, you do. While others curse the darkness, you light a candle.
A human being is eternal. Any human being is worthy of my attention, of my love. And therefore, I say it to you, when you enter this world and you say the world is not good today, good, correct it.
And if we stand strong, if we are beyachad, if we are together, we won't let the light go out. I plead, don't let the light go out.
Thank you all for not letting the light go out. Good evening. I am Shari Nemero. As an alumna of the Jewish Federations of North America's National Women's Philanthropy Board, I had the opportunity to attend a national book club on Zoom where Hallie Efron was featured. Immediately, I knew that she would be the right person to speak to our community of women at Visions. We were delighted when we found out that Hallie could join us tonight. Vision celebrates the stories of Jewish women. As you will hear, Hallie has an amazing story to tell us. The author of 16 books, Hallie grew up in a family of writers. Her parents were Hollywood screenwriters Phoebe and Henry Efron. She blogs daily on Jungle Red Writers. Hallie is a New York Times best-selling author, Edgar Award finalist, and a 5-time finalist for the Mary Higgins Clark Award. And as she says, she writes books she hopes readers can't put down. I know I couldn't. Her newest suspense novel is Careful What You Wish For. We wish it could be in person, but nonetheless, it is an honor to welcome Hallie to our virtual stage.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Hallie Efron, and I am thrilled, beyond thrilled, really, to be presenting to you this evening. The Arlene Solomon Virtual Visions event is something that I am just so tickled to be part of. Thank you so much. And I'm going to be talking today about, you guys are out in California. This is where I grew up. but I was very much not a child of California. We were all in our bones New Yorkers, which was where my parents had come from, and then transplanted. So I'm going to talk to you about the story of my family and how I finally came to writing. I call it succumbing to my genes, because I was a reluctant writer, very reluctant. And I hope it'll inspire some of you folks out there who are working on your second or your third career, because for me, it was about my fifth career to start writing. And there's always a little more in you. And the more life you live, the more things you have to write about. Because that's really what we do when we write fiction, is we just take something that really happened and turn it on its side and try to make a story out of it. So I'm going to switch over to a PowerPoint presentation and share my screen. Here it is. So that's me in this very same office. And that's my email. I won't be able to take questions at the end because of the nature of the event. But if you do have any questions, it's really easy to contact me. That's my email, hallie@hallieefron.com. I love to get emails. Okay, so here we go. I grew up in a family of writers. That's the house that we lived in Beverly Hills. For those of you who know Beverly Hills, we lived in the flats between Sunset and Santa Monica. And it wasn't the really high end of Beverly Hills, which would have been up near Mulholland Drive or in the Estates, where Fred Astaire lived, or any of the really mega stars. Our neighbors were people like TV writers, and our next door neighbor was a soap opera star. The other way, there was a jeweler and a doctor, but we lived a pretty precious life. Here's my dad and my mom and my three sisters, and I'll talk more about them in a little bit. We grew up in that house, and that house was filled with books. My mother made sure that we had a ton of them. And the fact that we were girls meant that she really curated, I would say, the books that we had. And so, for instance, I know it is not, there's not that many children's books for my generation with strong girls as characters, but boy, we had lots of them in the house. We had Little Women, we had the Oz books, and so on, just wonderful books about little girls. And the other thing the house was full of was writers. So there we are, all of us budding writers. I'm going to talk some more about that. My parents had grown up children of immigrants. They had come from Belarus, and their grandparents, their parents, my grandparents, did not speak a lot of English. They spoke Yiddish. And they lived in Manhattan, where, of course, nobody can afford to live now, but then you could, in an apartment. And my mother went to Hunter, which is, at that time, it was free. Hard to believe, but it was completely free. And she was very brilliant. She was an English major, top of her class. My dad went to Cornell. He was the only kid in his family to get sent to college. They could only afford to send one. He was the youngest, and they sent him to Cornell, and he got himself thrown out in his senior year for stealing books. I never really got the story quite straight, but he must have actually done it because he was out on his rear, and he went right into New York and tried to get a job in the theater. He loved theater, and that's one thing that he learned to do at Cornell was act and direct. And he talked his way into a job as a stage manager and worked with some of the great Broadway producers of the time. And my mother, when she was at Hunter, got herself a job working for the producer Gilbert Gilbert Merrill. And so she had one foot in the theater world. My dad had himself squarely in the theater world. And they met at her apartment when she was having a party. And he came with another woman and fell in love with my mother on sight. She was beautiful. She looked, they always say she looked like Katharine Hepburn, and she cracked wise like Dorothy Parker. And they got married very, very young, and it was the Depression. And they had to move in when she got pregnant and was about to have a baby. They had to move in with her parents at 100. And this is her. This is the only maternal looking picture I have of my mother. My mother was a smoking, hard drinking, wisecracking kind of Rosalind Russell character. And there she is with baby Nora Ephron in 1941. And I look at that picture and I think, says, who is that person? Because I don't remember her being at all mothering, but it is the sweetest picture. So there she is. And of course, what happened in 1941 when you were pregnant and had a baby? You lost your job. You were out on your ear from the time you started to show as your pregnancy. And so my dad, who had been writing plays at night, play after play after play, and couldn't get anybody interested in producing them, was very smart. He realized what a firecracker he'd married. And he said to my mom, don't go back to work. Let's write a play together. I always think of it as a Judy Garland moment, with when they say, let's put on a show, except let's write a play is a pretty much bigger deal. And the play that they wrote is called Three is a Family, and it's about a young couple. She gets pregnant. She loses her job. They have to move in with her parents. More relatives move in, and it's their story turned into a comedy. I always say the baby is a whoopee cushion in this play. And there it was. They had a play on Broadway. It ran several thousand performances at the Belasco Theater, and it was a hit. And it was the turning point in their lives. And after that, this is one of my favorite pictures. My mother, look how young she is. She's in her, she's barely 30 years old, probably 28. My dad is just a couple of years older, and there's Eleanor Roosevelt coming backstage to meet them after a performance of Three is a Family. What an exciting time it must have been, huh? So there they are, Henry and Phoebe Ephron, and they left New York because it was at this time that Hollywood was hungry for talent, all kinds of talent, and particularly writing talent. So they hopped on the Super Chief. By this time, my sister Nora was born. My sister Delia was just born, so she would have been a baby when they came. And this is the studio picture of my parents. And one of the things that cracks me up about this picture is it's got my dad at the typewriter. Now, my father, he was a hunt and peck typer. My mother, of course, she'd been a secretary. She took shorthand. See how her hands are poised. She probably had to give my father lessons on where to put his hands on that keyboard. But they wrote together. They wrote by talking. They wrote together. She would take notes and they would come up with stories. My father would pace up and down the room. They would laugh. They would argue, and they would come up with stories. And working for 20th Century Fox at that time was magical because there were so many movies being made. They got assigned movies, not like today where you try to write a movie and then try to interest someone in producing it. You got handed assignments after assignment after assignment. Of course, for the actors and actresses, it was exhausting. But for the writers, it was kind of magic. So they wrote and wrote and wrote and turned out, this is what a script looks like. This is my favorite thing. That is a copy. That is a second copy. So when my mother typed a script, she had not an electric typewriter, a regular typewriter. And she had 3 copy sets and an original, and she would roll them all into the typewriter and type hard because you wanted it to go through all 3 copies. And heaven forbid you made a mistake. You had to go back. It's in the days before Pampers too, of course. And what did they do before Pampers? But what did they do before correct type, before computers? I'm amazed that she was able to do this, centering each bit of dialogue the way she has. It's really a tour de force. But this is my mother outside of our home, where we had a house in Beverly Hills, and that's me in her arms. And that's my sister Nora on the left, and that's my sister Delia on the right. And you can kind of see our personalities right there. There's Nora, the star. She was always the one you look to for a lead. How should I behave? What should I do? What should I wear? And she was forthcoming with advice, believe me, and instructions. Delia holding back a little bit, and me trying to get out of my mother's arms so I could be with my big sisters, definitely. So here we are a little bit later in our house. There's Nora on the right, Amy, who now writes wonderful sort of fantasy children's, not young children's books, middle grade novels. She's got quite a career in that. Delia, of course, who wrote Hanging Up and also co-wrote movies with my sister Nora. And there's me over on the left. And you see how I'm not quite part of the group. I've always felt that I was just not really with the program. It took me a very, very long time to write. Nora came right out of the chute writing. So did Delia, so did Amy. And I was the one who said, I don't write. My parents had a wonderful time writing at 20th Century Fox. There are some of their movies. In 1957, Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn in Desk Set, probably one of my favorite movies of all time. And I got to go on the set of that and watch them film one of the scenes. Carousel, the movie version, I got to go on. I watched them film the Carousel Ballet. Oh, it was magic. And Daddy Longlegs with Fred Astaire and Leslie Caron. And these are just some of the movies. They did, 20 or more movies while they were at Fox. And they would have continued if they could have. But in 1963, Cleopatra was Fox's very, 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 it's the most expensive movie ever produced, ever, in terms of their dollars to our dollars. And soon after that, Fox ended up selling 300 acres of their backlot, which is basically today's Century City. And my parents lost their job. They lost their office. They lost their phone. They lost their typewriters. They lost everything and went to work at home for a while. What my mother did in the interim is she wrote her own play. It's the one piece of writing of hers that remains by hers solo. And it was called Howie, and it ran on Broadway. And this is an excerpt from the New York Times. A reporter interviewed her, and here's what he says. She's slim, 5'6", and weighs 120 pounds. She's vivacious and witty, and she could pass for Rosalind Russell. Quote, I'll kill you if you describe me coming out of the kitchen with flour on my hands and sitting down and writing funny lines. I don't go into the kitchen except for ice cubes for a drink. We have a cook for the cooking and a nurse for the children. I've been a full-time screenwriter since 1943 and put in a full day at the office. She was a tough cookie. And 13 years later, she died. And the reason that she died so young was because she had a severe drinking problem. And in those days, if you were a woman and you were depressed, and I think drinking is a way of self-medicating, there was really no help for you. It wasn't okay to admit it. It wasn't okay to go see a psychiatrist and ask for help. There was no mood-altering drugs to help you smooth out the ups and downs. And she died of cirrhosis, which is a terrible way to die. And I think one of the reasons that it took me a very, very long time, I was 22 when she died. It took me a very long time to start writing because I was afraid if I did what she did, I might turn into the very unhappy person that she was. And I think that turned out to be a good thing for me to do other things. So that's what I did. If you had asked me what did I do when I was 22 years old, I would have retorted, I am not a writer. I would be a little bit in your face about it because everyone assumed that I would be because everybody else was. On her deathbed, she really did say, you're a writer, take notes, everything is copy, just as Nora has said that she did. And I think she believed it. I don't think I have that talent for turning tragedy into comedy. Someday if I write about my mother, it will not be a comedy. But that's in my future. That's something for me to look forward to. Anyway, she did die much too young. And at that point, I was teaching in the New York City public schools. I'd gotten my bachelor's degree at Barnard College, loved Barnard College. And my mother, in all her wisdom, had said, you can go to Barnard and you can major in whatever you like as long as it's not education. She said, then you can go to graduate school and get your teaching degree and teach if you still want to. And I think she was pretty sure that I was not going to want to, but it turns out I love teaching. I'm a really good teacher. I love to teach. And so that's me at PS 189 in 1971, working with, this was probably my third group of my third classroom of children. They were great. 30 years later, I wrote my first book. That's how long it took me. I had a lot of careers in between. I worked in high tech. I taught at the college level. I got a PhD. I've done all kinds of things in the interim. And then every time I would start to write a book, I would think, I don't really have anything to write about. I haven't had war experience. I didn't want to write about my mother's alcoholism, which I certainly could have. So the hard things to write about, I didn't want to write about, and it just didn't seem like the others were worthy of a story. So I worked with a co-author. My co-author, we wrote 6 books together, the Dr. Peter Sack Murder Mysteries, and published by St. Martin's. And they're about a character based on my co-author, who's a forensic neuropsychologist who evaluates people accused of murder. Now, this is a picture taken at the first book launch of my first event in New York City. I can't remember what the name of the bookstore is. It's gone. All of the mystery bookstores are gone. So there's Nora on the left and Delia on the right. And those 2 lovely young women in the middle are my daughters. That's Molly in the pink and Naomi in the green. Molly is a writer and Naomi is an architect. And I am very much blessed with the children that I have. They're fabulous. So I did write that novel. It did pretty well. We wrote 6 books for St. Martin's. And then finally, I started to write on my own, trusting my own experience. Just checking the time. I thought I would have, okay, we're good. Never Tell a Lie was my first book. It's a it's a psychological suspense, a domestic suspense. And I went to a yard sale near me. That's where I found the idea. I went and I'm chatting with the woman because I knew I've always been curious about this house. And she invited me inside to look around the house. It was big old Victorian, and I'm wandering around the first floor of this house. It's very creepy being in someone else's house. And I thought, what if, and that's how a story always begins, what if a woman goes to a yard sale, somehow she talks her way in, she goes inside, and she never comes out. Whew, I ran home very fast, first of all, to write it down, also because it was creepy being in that house and having that thought. And by the time I got home, I knew that the woman having the yard sale would be 9 months pregnant, and the woman coming to the yard sale would also be 9 months pregnant. And I ended up writing a domestic suspense novel, a mystery, that was very much about what it was like to have my first child. And I realized I did have something to write about. I got a starred review in Publishers Weekly. They called it Deliciously Creepy, which I've been quoting ever since. And it was made into a Lifetime Movie Network movie. So that was a pretty heady, exciting time. I went on and wrote my 1, 2, 3, 4, sixth suspense novel came out. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that one. Careful What You Wish For came out last August, the paperback edition. And just like Never Tell a Lie, it's very personal. You wouldn't know it reading it. But so that goes back to my mother's observation that everything is copy, because it really is. If you're an author, just pay attention to what you're living and you'll have something to write about. Careful What You Wish For is about a professional organizer. I'm not a professional organizer. I researched that side of it. Married to a man who cannot pass a yard sale without stopping. Ding, ding, ding. I am married to a lovely man. He is a sweetheart, but he cannot pass a yard sale without stopping. And he drags home all kinds of things that I don't want, but also occasionally the great thing. The problem is he will never throw anything away. Now, I'm sure some of you are nodding and you're thinking, this sounds familiar. Unlike me, the character in the book finds herself wondering, does her husband spark joy? And I have always loved that quote. That's, of course, Marie Kondo speaking, to keep only those things that spark joy. So that's what the book is about. And I'll tell you just a little bit more about it. The opening line is Emily Harlow wasn't convinced that her sock drawer sparked joy. And I love the trivialness of what it takes to get organized and the methodicalness of it. And of course, the question is, did Marie Kondo inspire me? And the answer is, heavens no. I mean, I've been writing about my husband's collecting. It was probably one of the very first essays I ever wrote was about that. So I have been thinking and living and writing about clutter, other people's clutter that you live with, for a very long time. But I got really lucky with Marie Kondo because her work came out just before my book. And so it was synchronous. It was fortuitously synchronous. What has inspired me is what my friend who's a professional organizer calls a mixed marriage. A mixed marriage is where your husband or your spouse, I guess these days we should say, has a different relationship to their stuff than you want them to. So a mixed marriage. In other words, Jerry's a collector and I'm a get rid of her. So here are just some of the things that he collects. His books. He has vintage fans, quite a collection of vintage fans. There's a trunk in the basement that's full of wonderful jigsaw puzzles that we've actually been doing during COVID. And that's Jerry's lap. If you ask him for a pen, he'll reach in and take out. There's like 8 of them. It's like, why do you need 8 pens in your pocket? But that's what he has. So he is a sweetheart, but his stuff drives me nuts, and it is front and center in the book. So the book is Careful What You Wish For is about mixed marriages, three of them, but there's Emily and Frank, and Emily is the virtual me, but she's a professional organizer, and Frank is her husband who can't pass a yard sale. And then there's Quinn and Walter. Walter is very wealthy. Quinn is his wife, and he won't let her bring any of her stuff into their house because his house has his art and his collections, and he doesn't want any of it in the house. So it's a very different take on stuff. And there's a moment in the book that's inspired by a wonderful book called Strangers on a Train by Patricia Highsmith, where Emily has gone to help Quinn finally get rid of the junk that Walter won't let her bring in the house. And they have drinks together. They're drinking a lot of Prosecco and getting a little silly. And Quinn says, think there are any charities, she's asking about her husband, that will come over and pick him up? Maybe I should just chuck him off the roof. Instead, 2 accidents waiting to happen. Quinn raised the bottle, then lowered it. Her look turned sober. Or maybe it's safer to hire a hitman, a complete stranger, and be done with it. She gave Emily an appraising look. So, could you? So that's the title, Careful What You Wish For, because it gets Emily in a lot of trouble in very short order. Okay, there is a third couple, Ruth and Murph, and Ruth has been widowed for a year, and she's one of those widows who has not been able to deal with Murph's stuff. His newspaper that he was reading the day he died is on the floor. His cup of coffee is by the chair. She's a year in, and she's finally asks Emily's help to help her clear out his stuff. And what does she find when they start going through the stuff but a bill for a storage unit that she never knew he had? And so what's in that storage unit? And I guarantee there's no severed head. What's in that storage unit is a whole subplot that very neatly will come together with, so the 3 stories will end up kind of braiding together. You'll see. I hope I surprise you. That's the most surprising part of the book. It surprised me when I wrote it. It's like there was a moment in the book, and I bet you'll know it when you hit it, where I thought, wow, that is neat. And it's very wonderful when that happens. So the book came out, and one of the great gifts I got was a review in Time magazine, a full-page review written by Jamie Lee Curtis. I am such a Jamie Lee Curtis fan. And she wrote this fabulous review. And when my editor called me to say I was going to be reviewed in Time, I said, in Time for what? I had no idea that this could happen. So it was pretty exciting. And I won't read it to you because I can sense that. But my favorite part of it is Jamie Lee Curtis says, I'm really not a fan of scary books. I don't like to be scared. She said, life is scary enough without reading about it. And then she says, I know. And of course, we know that she was, the star in some really fabulous, iconic horror movies. But anyway, she's a big fan of my book, and I'm a big fan of hers. So it's one of those serendipitous things that could never happen unless you go and write a book and get really, really lucky. So I'm going to stop there. Let me see how I did in terms of time. I'm looking here. I think I'm on the money. Okay. I wish I could see you. I wish I could talk with you. I hope some of you have read the book or will read the book. Please email me questions. I love getting emails. I do respond. Hallie@hallieefron.com. That's not hard to remember. And I want to thank so much the Jewish Long Beach Women's Philanthropy Cabinet for making this possible. And now I want to turn it over to Zach Benjamin, CEO of the Jewish Long Beach, for closing remarks.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being with us. My name is Zach Benjamin, CEO of Jewish Long Beach. Hallie Efron, thank you for honoring us with your presence and with your stories. To Linda Waltzman and the Women's Philanthropy Cabinet, thank you for your leadership in uncertain times. Thank you for the tireless professional contributions of our development and communications team. Director of Community Outreach, Sharon Kenigsberg, Marketing and Outreach Manager, Melanie Edwards, Editorial Coordinator, Carol Beckerman, and Office Manager, Yolanda Placencio. Over 13 months ago, we gathered as a Jewish community family at the Alpert JCC on the Weinberg Jewish Long Beach campus, where we bore witness to the violins of hope and the perseverance, defiance, and triumph against all odds that they represent. As we greeted each other with fist and elbow bumps, little did we know, or perhaps we suspected just a little, that the 2020 Arlene Solomon Visions Dinner would be our final chance to gather in person for over a year. Tonight, this intrepid community of Jewish women has again inspired us to come together, this time using the medium that has come to symbolize the challenges of recent times. Perhaps it's fitting that just one installment, and we hope it's only one, of this tradition takes place virtually to remind us how lucky we'll be to gather again when we're able. It's also a reminder of why it's so critically important to continue to support Jewish Long Beach and agencies like it. I want to especially thank our high angels and all who've made their commitment to us so far in 2021. Over the course of the past year, your investment has enabled us, through grants to our partner organizations across Long Beach and West Orange County, quite literally to feed the hungry, to treat the ill, to comfort the aggrieved, to ensure that our children remain educated, and to see to it that our physical gathering spaces remain safe and ready for our eventual return. Now more than ever, Jewish federations, JCCs, human services agencies, schools, Hillels, and congregations alike are demonstrating their value and indeed their necessity. Locally, Jewish Long Beach was able to put hundreds of thousands of your dollars to work in directly serving the most vulnerable among us as the COVID-19 crisis unfolded, ensuring that Jewish life could continue unfettered, and also that Jewish community served as a light unto the broad community in dark times. Nationally, the network of Jewish federations to which we belong was responsible not just for hundreds of thousands of dollars, but for hundreds of millions of dollars worth of impact here at home, in Israel, and in communities around the world. We must be able to continue this work in service to the Jewish people and to all people. We must be able to respond with at least as much impact to the next crisis as we were to this one. As a collective of Jewish women committed to the Jewish future and the public good, you are leading the charge to ensure that our community does its part to keep the light of Jewish peoplehood and service burning, and that it's passed to your daughters, your granddaughters, your great-granddaughters, and across the generations. If you've not done so already, please make your investment in Jewish Long Beach today. If you have, I hope you'll consider increasing your commitment so that we might continue to be the light in times of challenge, and that we may be builders in times of triumph. Now we invite you to join breakout rooms to schmooze and catch up with new and longtime friends. You'll find links in the chat or in emails that you received prior to the program. Thank you for your commitment. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for all you do to bring our people and our community from strength to strength, and for all you've done to heal in these days of isolation.